Hello and welcome to the Roto Wire Fantasy Soccer Podcast. We're talking Saturday's three-game slate at DraftKings. I'm Adam Zdroik, joined by Ryan Belongia. Ryan, welcome to the show. Unfortunately, we do not have Jordan today. He has a dentist appointment. I'm sorry to Jordan if that information is secret, but it's unfortunate because this is his kind of slate. We got six teams. None of them are elite. I guess Everton, technically, they're fighting relegation, but Ryan, no Manchester City, no James Ward-Prowse. Are you happy?
Whew, I'm happy not to have James Ward-Prowse. Yeah. Man, it cost me a lot of money again midweek. I know I recommended another fade on this podcast. I mean, I think it's getting close to the point where we should just ban me from talking about James Ward-Prowse and let somebody else do it. He's just too good, apparently. But yeah, anyways, this slate, it's nice, that we have no Manchester City or no Liverpool. It's not one of those slates where we're going to try to jam guys in, but this slate's really tough. I wrote in my article that there were basically like no slam dunk plays with the exception of maybe Raphinha, which is interesting because usually there's, three or four guys that you kind of just know are going to do well. You can kind of, at least me, I just sort of lock them in all my lineups and go from there. This slate, it's tough, man. You can make an argument for a few guys at different positions. We'll get into that, but just to break it down, the Leeds Everton matchup stands out because it's got a 3.09 implied total looking at our cheat sheet on RotoWire. But the other games have totals around 2.3. So goals on this slate may be hard to come by if that Leeds Everton game, doesn't go as planned. We have
while we're looking at these odds here, I guess before you read these off, while we read these off, you mentioned the 2.3, and I think that's one thing that, like, I do a betting podcast at RotoWire. If you don't watch it, check it out, called Kits and Wagers. But I mentioned in the show this Brentford Crystal Palace match. It's unclear why the implied goal total right here is 2.35. So Brentford home matches, they average about 2.6 goals per match. Crystal Palace away matches a little more than 2.8 away from home. So it's like, why is this match 2.35? Like, we talked about it in the midweek slate. Like, I mentioned Adamita, I mentioned Timo Pukki. Like, those guys got on the score sheet at home against Crystal Palace. And I just don't know why the implied goal total is so low on this. Like, it was scoreless early in their season, but that was in August. So, like, why are we incorporating? Maybe they're incorporating that. I don't know. It's unclear why the odds are. Like, the implied goal total for this match is lower than the Brighton Watford one, which, like, this doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, interesting. So I take it you like the over in that game?
Yes, very much.
Okay, well, I mean, I guess I'll just try to play devil's advocate. You mentioned Norwich, who we were kind of on. They scored in the first minute. That game still ended with only 2 goals. Brentford, I don't know. They need a win. They're fighting relegation now. They're without, top goal scorer Ivan Toney, so that might do something to their implied total, just a tiny bit. I don't know. They've been playing bad, not scoring goals. I think they've lost 5 straight. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. The total looks low. What you said, their home matches have been averaging 2.6. We should go over the other games quickly. Yeah, you mentioned Watford hosting Brighton. That game has a similar 2.3 total. I see now that they're about equal, that game and the Brentford Palace game. Watford's kind of tightened it up under Roy Hodgson, which you'd expect. That's, why they hired him. That's the kind of manager he is. Brighton have notoriously struggled to score goals going back to last season with, there's some exceptions, but I think overall they've struggled to score. So yeah, I don't know. I think you can make arguments for I guess both ways of those games.
I think the Brighton Watford match has 1-0, 1-1, or scoreless draw written all over it. Just because the way Brighton play, the way with Watford are playing now under Hodgson, like it's pretty clear that this is going to be a low scoring match. If it's if it's high scoring, then never listen to me again. But it just doesn't seem like it's going to be.
It doesn't. You're right. I think it's a better chance for that Brentford Palace game to go over than that one. I agree with you. I mean, Palace is definitely a more expansive team than they've been. Try to score goals, and Brentford too. This is a big game for Brentford. I mean, they're in the relegation fight now. They were scoring goals at the beginning of the year. They scored goals in the championship. I think they probably fancy themselves here at home against Palace. They need to score.
I just want to say a lot of it. I feel like a lot of it, like sure they're not playing well, but they've had a really difficult schedule. Like if you just like scan through recent matches, like sure they're losing, but they played Manchester City, Wolverhampton, Manchester United, Liverpool, at Southampton. Like they won a month ago home against Aston Villa, and then before that, like they have another Manchester City game. So it's not like they've had even easy matchups. So like you could be like, oh, look at what they've done over the last month, but like home against Crystal Palace isn't anywhere close to the matchups they've had of late. So like people are going to be looking at the game logs, but I'm not sure how much those even matter for this one.
No, that's a very, very good point. Very good point. They have had a tough schedule, so you wouldn't expect them to really score too many goals in that game. I mean, you look at their lineup though, and it's their expected lineup. There's not a lot there, for a Premier League club. But yeah, I guess if I had to pick sort of a side, I still agree with you. I like Brentford to come out and go for it here. They need to take advantage of these home matchups against some of the weaker clubs if they're going to stay up.
Whoa, do not say that too loud, okay?
Because
you're in Crystal Palace. You're in Crystal Palace. Come on, remember this.
Yeah, don't worry, no one can hear me.
All right, let's look at forwards here. So, I mean, you mentioned first in your article Raphinha 9,000. There's not really, a comparison for him on this slate. Like you could say Alexis McAllister, but even then, like that's the lowest scoring match. Brighton Watford, he's midfield only too. So we got Raphinha 9,000, Zaha 8,900. Sar's probably not going to start 8,700. Cucho Hernandez, Ivan Toney's probably not going to start. It's like if you don't go Raphinha, like who else are you even trying to spend up for?
Yeah, exactly. And no, sorry, I said Ivan Toney was out. My bad. I see that he actually might play, but yeah, you're right. Probably won't start. So Raphinha at the top, you're right. There just isn't a lot there. So if it was another slate with some other teams and more DFS friendly players, Raphinha wouldn't necessarily be like a lock in an away matchup with Everton at 9K as the most expensive player on the slate. But here, that game has the highest total. This Everton team has been leaking goals for a while now. It's been a long time since they kept the clean sheet. I haven't looked at the exact numbers. New manager Frank Lampard basically got fired from Chelsea because the team was allowing a lot of goals and didn't play defense. And this Everton squad just gave up 3 or 4 last game. 3. And
they might have to start new signing Nathan Peterson at left back. I mean, it depends if they go with a 4-3-3 or a 3-4-3 because they lost Lucas Digne, but they also they played Andros Townsend at left wing back last match, but Michaelenko, their new signing, he's hurt, so they're just lacking options right now. Nathan also Yuri Mina got hurt last match too. He's out for a couple months, so like they're really thin on the back line, which definitely isn't going to help.
Interesting. Yeah, I like Nathan Patterson. Just from what I've seen, like young 20-year-old fullback. I remember he was min price on a few of the Europa League slates last year, playing for Rangers, I believe. Yeah. So that'd be interesting. But you're right. I don't think it would help their defense at all. A 20-year-old kid making his Premier League debut, trying to fit into a side. They have a lot of new players on Everton. A new system under a new manager. You can see why that game has a total above 3. But yeah, back to Raphinha. He hasn't. You look at his game log. I guess he hasn't been overwhelmingly good.
He hasn't been JWP, to say the least.
Right. He hasn't scored in 4 games. He's not putting up huge floors. But for this slate, he just looks considerably better than these other guys, at least at the top. Well,
at least for cash games.
Cash games is a lock.
Right, yeah.
He's got penalty kicks. He's taking at least half the sets, probably a majority. He's a lot of open play value too, and playing in the game with the highest total. It's as simple as that. And he's just a great player. Talent wise, he's the best player on this slate too. So for cash games, you just lock Raphinha in and move on.
Yeah, it's kind of like, at least for cash games, you can really spend up on 2. It's not like there's a ton of other guys at other positions where you want to spend up. Like, this isn't a slate where Trent Alexander-Arnold's at 9,000. Like, there are no defenders. There's not even a Lucas Digne at 7,100 or whatever he was. So it's kind of like you could get Raphinha and you could get someone else. Like, there are guys here. You could correlate, maybe, like, if you go with my thoughts in the Brentford Crystal Palace match, get some of those guys in that game. Like, you get if Edouard starts again, Jordan Ayew could start again. Like you don't have to get Zaha at 8,900. You can go down with them. But I guess you could even go, like, if you go Raphinha, you could even go Everton guys. Like, you got Richarlison, you got Calvert-Lewin, who seems 6,700. That seems like a discount just because of, he struggled since he's come back from injury, but at any point, that's going to turn around. So it could be this match. Like, he started the season with 3 goals in 3 matches, and you're getting, an Everton forward against a Leeds back line that just gave up 3 goals. So, there's going to be goals in this match. So 6,700 for Calvert-Lewin, that's you can consider him for cash games even at that price.
Yeah, I suppose you could. I wasn't thinking of it until you just said it, but Leeds is, a great opponent in terms of scoring goals. They play an attacking style. They allow a lot of goals, and Calvert-Lewin actually has the highest goal scoring odds on the slate. I see what we have him at plus 120 right now. It's not great, but in comparison to the rest of the slate, it stands out. It's only 6,700. Like, playing at home too, you could make the argument, like, why is any Watford forward more expensive than Calvert-Lewin? Mm-hmm. And we see these guys we see these Watford guys at 8K. Like, why is Will Zaha 2,200 more than Calvert-Lewin? So you're right. He is a little bit too cheap. I hadn't been considering him for cash, I guess probably because I don't really play cash games, but it does make sense. I was thinking who I would start at second forward in cash, and was probably leaning towards Mbeumo, who also seems decent for 6,500. Might still takes a few sets here and there, and might take more depending on what lineup they roll out. But he has some open play value too, and he usually plays 90 minutes, and I think it's a pretty good price tag for Mbeumo as well, at least in relation to the rest of the slate.
So I guess you mentioned depends on the lineup. So it obviously depends on Matthias Jensen in the starting 11. So if Jensen doesn't start, would you say Mbeumo is almost a lock for cash games, just because he would probably would he get the majority? He'd probably get the majority of set pieces for Brentford. But then, if Jensen's in, then it's going to be like splitting and probably, only a couple. So it's not like, so I'd
Yeah.
say I probably wouldn't look at him with Jensen in the lineup, I guess, like 6,500, and you're maybe getting set pieces. So I'm not sure it's worth it, but it kind of
Um,
depends, like if you can actually spend on your second forward, I guess. Depends on
yeah. So I agree with the first thing that you said. If Jensen wasn't in there, and Buemo might be close to a lock for cash
Mhm.
games. It's funny to say that, but I agree with you. The other part you say, if Jensen starts, maybe not. I don't know. I still think you can, just because there really isn't opportunity cost, and he's
Yeah,
cheaper
yeah.
than most of the other guys you would play. It's still a home forward that like probably has a set or two and has some open play value in like a decent matchup. So I still think you could go there.
Like there's
Um,
honestly no one else to go to under him almost. Like we were talking about, if that Watford Brighton game is as defensive as expected, like do we want to spend 6,000 on King? Like maybe Welbeck starts at 5,600. I guess there's a chance Mateta starts for Crystal Palace again, but I don't think that's going to happen. And then
yeah, can't do
even
that in
Godosh,
cash
yeah, even
either.
Godosh for Brentford, if he starts again, like he's not going to go full 90. And how much are you getting anyways for 5,200? The big
Right.
question, I guess, is Eberici easy, but I don't think he's going to start. So, like, if he starts, obviously that's changes things completely because he's 4,700, but he's probably not going to start. So,
Yeah, you could definitely play Eze at that price, but it doesn't look like he's going to start. I mean, if you really wanted to, uh, it's pretty nasty. But if Dele Alli gets the start in the number 10 role against Leeds for 5K, and you
I
have
overlooked that he was in my current lineup right now, so I overlooked that. Yeah,
yeah, he's in my current lineup right now too. So yeah,
Uh-oh.
you could do that if you have midfielders that you want to spend for, and it's just he doesn't have much of a floor, but it's a good matchup, and these other forwards don't have much of a floor either. So you're probably not losing too much. You could pay all the way down for him.
Yeah, I mean, 5K for Dele Alli, like, why wouldn't you just save the 1K on him, then spending up for another 1K on Joshua King? Like
Definitely,
there's
I
not
agree.
there's
Yeah,
not a huge difference there. So
there's not like a huge difference except Josh King has
goal
pens,
upside.
which is something. But yeah, goal upside. So right. But I agree for cash games at least.
Yeah. So midfield, it's not. I don't know. It's not a ton different in terms of what we've been talking about here. It's kind of we got McAllister here. That's the interesting option. 8,400. Like you look at his game log, he's awesome. He's majority of set pieces. I assume he's going to start. He should be fine. Coming off of, he missed the FA Cup match, which was a week ago at now. So that's pretty far in the past. He's been training for a couple days. So I guess the question with that is, how much are we putting into Roy Hodgson's Watford team, and do you think that's going to maybe limit what McAllister can do overall?
Um, yeah, I'm putting like a little into it in that they've allowed fewer goals, and it seems like they will allow fewer goals going forward, just because that's Hodgson's goal. I guess he's trying to keep them up. That's how he's played in the past. But I'm not sure it will affect McAllister from a floor perspective. Brighton are good at keeping possession. They should, sort of, not the whole game, but for the majority, like boss the game against Watford and still create chances. Or McAllister should at least still get fantasy points. He's been really, really good. I've been really impressed with McAllister. He's treated me really well too. So I'm gonna have, I want to roster him. 90 minutes and 4 straight. He's sharing sets with Pascal Gross, but taking more than Gross. And also, he's just, from an open play standpoint, he's an attacking player. He loves to shoot. He loves to get forward. He's broken into the Argentina side. He's sort of boys with Leo Messi, from what I've heard. And yeah, I mean, it's all going well for McAllister right now. And, match against Watford is a pretty good spot, even if Hodgson's got them playing better and maybe not allowing as many goals. But on this slate, yeah, I still have a lot of interest in McAllister. There's just not much else.
Yeah, I want to bring up Watford, their 1-0 loss at West Ham. It's not, it's not one-to-one comparison. Obviously, West Ham are more of a counter-attacking team, I'd say. Brighton, they tend to have possession a little bit more. But the numbers in that match, West Ham was at home. They only had 1.05 expected goals. They took 9 shots.
Yeah, and everyone thought West Ham were going to smash that Watford game. They were stacking him in DFS. Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
So I mean, like, you have that result. Again, it's not 1-to-1, but like this is at Watford. This might even be Hodgson's first home match. I don't know where they played previously. Burnley. Yeah, it was at Burnley. So this might be.
Those are a lot of good points, actually. Yeah, those are a lot of good points. I'm not incredibly bullish on Brighton, away to Watford in this spot.
Yeah, I mean, so if McAllister starts, I guess even if he doesn't start, are we even considering Pascal Gross? Like, he used to be like the cash guy, but with McAllister taking set pieces, there's just no reason, to put him in just because 7,100, not going to get 90, maybe no set pieces. Like, he's kind of an afterthought now, right?
Yeah, good call. I forgot to mention that when we were talking about forward. So the price tag looks good for Gross. It's cheaper than it's been. We saw him up over 9K, even over 10K a few weeks now that I'm looking, mostly in the 8K. So he's down there now. But yeah, he doesn't have a monopoly of sets anymore, which is how Gross used to get there. He's not playing 90 minutes like you mentioned. He's only gone longer than 70 once. It was 73 minutes in like his last 4 or 5 starts. So I guess you can do it, but no, I don't want to. I think if you're rostering Gross thinking he's got like a 12-point floor like he used to have, no, yeah, I just don't agree with that. Yeah. Now, what I will say is in the lineups that they've been running out recently, and the one that we have projected where Lallana and Basuma both start, Gross has been getting more forward.
I'm not sure. I think it's going to be between Gross and Lallana to start in the midfield. That's my assumption. Yeah, because with Basuma in there, I don't think they're going to do the 3 midfielders.
Yeah, okay. Well, I guess even so, just with Basuma back in there, Gross has been getting slightly more forward, at least in the games that I've watched. You see it doesn't really show up in the stats, but yeah, I don't know, just something, I guess, maybe slightly more upside than he used to have, at least from open play. He's probably, is he still on penalties? I don't know. We don't know. He missed his last one. So, I never
looked. It might even be McAllister. I don't know. They'd have to take some more research, but they have 4 guys who have taken 1 PK this season. So
right, yeah, Mopai, Trossard, I think they both each taken 1 as well. Yeah, so you're not banking on that anymore. Minority of set pieces, or at best splitting them, assuming that McAllister's in the lineup, and almost certain to not play 90 minutes. Yeah, for me, that's a fade. I'm off Gross. Yeah, I agree.
All right. So next in midfield, I want to talk about maybe one of my favorite plays here. I put him in my initial lineup. I'm not sure if you mentioned him in your article, but we got Anthony Gordon here at 7,000. So there's a world in which he takes the majority of set pieces for Everton. Damari Gray's out. There's a chance Townsend doesn't start. So, like, at this point, it seems like Gordon, when he starts, like, he's getting a 90. He's just playing so well that there's no reason like Lampard's going to sub him out. It's more seems like if Townsend starts, or I don't know, even like Dele Alli or Van de Beek, if those guys start, like those guys aren't, set for a full 90. But I don't even think it matters what position he plays in Everton's formation. Like you're getting 7,000 here. There will be set pieces. At least that's the assumption. And like he's been pretty solid on the pitch whenever he's played for Everton. And 7,000 against Leeds, like I think that's a pretty good option. Like if you don't want to take the route of McAllister, I think Gordon might be like the top cash midfielder here at 7,000.
Yeah, interesting. So when he's in the article I wrote, but just a little one sentence blurb. I didn't see when I was writing the article, Damari Gray hadn't been ruled out yet. And yeah, you make a lot of good points. It's a great spot too at home to Everton. I'm also an Anthony Gordon fan. We've talked about him on the podcast before. I rostered him for that 2-goal game he had, which makes me like him even more. And yeah, 7K. Okay, if Townsend's not in, if Townsend doesn't start, I agree.
Almost.
I want Gray. He's probably going to have a majority of the set pieces if Townsend's not in there, and he definitely has open play upside too, especially in that matchup. So yeah, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. So in that range, like you mentioned in your article, we got Gallagher out of nowhere took all 6 corners for Crystal Palace last match. Like, would you rather? I mean, maybe you could get both these guys in your lineup. I mean, it's definitely possible. But like, would you rather have Gordon or Gallagher?
It's a tough question. It's if Townsend wasn't in the lineup, give me Gallagher, or sorry, give me Gordon. If Townsend wasn't in the lineup, and I don't know, like if he was, you can still make an argument. Conor Gallagher, yeah, that was tilting. On the podcast, I said that, Olise would definitely have half the set pieces, being that he's left-footed, and I was watching that game, and he ran over to take a corner in the first half, and he was lining up to take it, and then Conor Gallagher runs over and calls off the corner. So, I don't know if that's because Conor Gallagher
assist
now, or if it's because Vieira wanted an in swinger rather than an out swinger from that side, or vice versa. But even still, Gallagher was taking set pieces from both sides and took all 6 of them. And a matchup against Brentford's a good spot. And Gallagher, we've seen him priced over 9K on a lot of these slates, and it's sort of made us not been able to roster him. Now he's back down to 7.6, and he has a lot of open play upside too. He's a goal scorer from midfield. He gets forward, especially if they play with a holding mid in there behind him, or even 2 like Schlupp and Will Hughes or whoever. Like, I like Gallagher to get forward and support the attack too. So it's a tough question. My answer would be, if Townsend's not in there, give me Gordon. If he is, I don't know. Take your pick, I guess.
Yeah, Elisa 7,900, Gallagher 7,600. Like if you want all Crystal Palace set pieces and don't want to worry about one guy not taking any, go with it. They're at Brentford, so the opportunities.
Sorry to interrupt. That'll be a question too for people, like Olise or Gallagher. And it's also an interesting question. I think I would have to side with Gallagher, just because, and in that match on Wednesday, you see Palace's starting lineup, and then you see that they have Eze, Benteke, Edouard, and Ayew on the bench. 4 attackers who 2 of them are coming on. And Zaha doesn't get subbed for the most part. So you see Olise went 70 minutes. I mean, that's going to happen again if you have those big players on the bench. So that makes me lean Gallagher, who pretty much always plays 90 minutes.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised on a short week if like IU's back in the starting 11 either. So that'll be something to consider. But it seems like I'm just going down the midfield list. There are a lot of viable options in this range. Like I kind of threw out Jack Harrison a little bit ago, but he's gone a full 90 in each of the last 3 league matches. Like he's 7,200 against Everton. He's back in play. Like just the way Leeds are playing, it seems like they're looking a little better and they have a good matchup. So 7,200, maybe not the safest option because the set pieces aren't there, but he's still a guy that's going to cross in a ton.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He's looked
I
good
think
too.
Wisa even is listed as a midfielder. He could start as a forward for Brentford. He's 6,400. There's another guy. I guess one of the more disappointing things here when I went through my lineup, I was looking for Lamptey at defense. He's listed as midfield only at 6,000. I was like, what's going on? Why is Ryan Fraser, who's been playing as a forward, like a 5,000 defender, and we have Lamptey listed as midfield only, and he plays he plays defense.
Me
Like
too, man. I literally I thought the same thing. I mean, we can just jump to just briefly jump to defender because you brought up Lamptey, but I did the same thing. And because there's just like no elite defender plays on this slate, I wanted Lamptey to be my defender play. I would just going to jam him in on all my lineups with the lack of other defenders we have. But yeah, he's not there anymore. Even though half the time he's playing in a back four, half the time he plays on the wing. But yeah, now 6K in midfield, I don't want to go there at all. He never goes the full 90 minutes. And so, yeah, that's unfortunate. Back to, Jack Harrison. Yeah, he's looked good recently. Good matchup. I still, wouldn't do it for cash games just because you have these other guys we talked about, Gordon or Gallagher. But yeah, really good tournament play, Jack Harrison.
Yeah,
same with Wissa.
Yeah. I mean, if Tony, it kind of depends if Tony's in the lineup, but like, there's a chance like Yohan Wissa like goes a full 90. Like, I don't know, he hasn't played that much, but they don't really have a ton of forwards, so
right.
Like that's
If Tony,
something to
if Tony
something
didn't
think about.
Yeah, if Tony wasn't in the squad, yeah, that's a good point. That's exactly how I was thinking as well. If Tony wasn't in the squad, it would up my interest in Yohan Wissa playing forward and not as much of a sub risk. He's an exciting player. He's got goals in him. He
got a hat trick in like a cup match. I don't know, a couple months ago. I remember. At least I think it was him, if I remember correctly.
It's been like a disappointing start to his Brighton career. I want to say he was
Brentford,
their record signing. I mean, he was really good for Lorient in the French league. Scored a bunch of goals. Just hasn't worked out for him so far. But yeah, I think it's a good tournament play. Definitely.
Yeah, if he wasn't coming off COVID, he probably would have started their match midweek. So now that he has a few more days, I'd say he starts, but never know. But otherwise, for midfield, there's still like viable options in this range. Like if you want to go here, this could even be talking utility spot. Like I don't even think Schlupp's a bad play at 5,200 just because of the matchup. Like he gets fairly forward in the midfield for Crystal Palace. There's a chance Motor starts for Brighton. Again, we talked about Jensen. He's sitting here at 4,700. You could have majority of set pieces in that match. You got Click, who's always, a guy, 4,500. Like you just go down this list and there's just, viable options who have some kind of value. But I guess, even Baptiste here, he could start too. And he's a guy that he hasn't played a ton, but
he's a guy. Yeah, it's basically the best description.
What if Iwobi starts on the wing for Everton? He's 3,000. Like there's options everywhere here.
Sure. So there's options, but I think I'm less enthusiastic about them than you are, at least most of them. So I'll start with Jensen because if you told me that Jensen was going to play 90 minutes, he'd be one of the best plays on the slate. Like just absolutely at 4,700, taking the majority of sets. in a home matchup with Palace. He does other stuff too when he's playing in that central role. He's been unlucky not to score some goals this season. Now, Brentford are getting healthier, and Jensen rarely plays 90 minutes, although he did last week against City. I've seen lineups where he's not in the projected 11 and others where he is. 4,700. Yeah, I think you could go there for cash games, but I think you could go there for cash games, I guess. So the other guy I'll mention is in the lineups where I didn't see Jensen. That was because Josh Da Silva was in the starting 11. He's 3K, returning after a long injury layoff. He was a big player for Brentford in the championship. Number 10, scores goals, creates chances. I don't know if you necessarily need to do that for cash games, but just something to keep in mind. These other guys, I would
say, if we're talking about full 90s, Da Silva's not going to play a full 90. He was out for basically a year and just came back. So
I just mean if you want, right? I'm just saying, we're mentioning the guys that we're mentioning, Schlupp. I mean, kind of 5-2 for Schlupp. Yeah,
Schlupp.
I know. Sure, he's okay. Cleek. Cleek's an interesting one. It really depends on where he lines up. Sometimes he plays the number 10 role, and he's pretty good from a fantasy perspective. Oftentimes when he plays there, takes shots, creates chances. But if he's playing defensive mid, don't like him as much. It's sub 2. I mean, these guys, none of them are really appealing on their own, but just because there's really not much here, I guess they got to be considered. That being said, just for cash games, Jensen starts. I think you probably just got to go with it. I mean, he's majority of sets for a home match against Palace. He in this range, he's got the best floor, even if he's only going to play 70 minutes. I mean, I don't like it. It's probably not something I do for tournaments, but there still is a floor there.
Yeah, I want to say, just because I would say if this wasn't a short week, if Jensen started, I'd say he'd go full 90. You look at his game log, it just doesn't show that, but he really hasn't been, completely healthy for, I don't know, more than a month straight at a time this season. So he opened the season, he wasn't fully fit, and then he got COVID and he got an injury. He hasn't been fully fit. And, coming out of the international break, he got the full 90 midweek, but now it's a short week. So maybe, that changes things. So I guess that's something to worry about for everyone who usually gets subbed early. It is a short week, so you're going to want to take that into consideration for some guys who maybe went a full 90. You're looking at midweek, and it's well, they're not going to go full 90 twice in the matter of 4 days. So
yeah, I think you're right. And then though, also you never want to try to predict minutes too much.
Definitely. Yeah.
So like I mentioned, if Jensen did play a full 90 minutes, he's among the best plays on the slate in 90 minutes. So that's got to be factored in. There's a chance, obviously, that he does.
All right. So the position we've been waiting to talk about here, Stuart Dallas is 5,300. He's the most expensive defender. Next up is Kamara for Watford at 5,100 because his floor has been outrageous because of tackles won and interceptions. Something that, probably shouldn't continue, but, he's done it in back-to-back matches. So who knows at this point? Raphinha, 5,000. Cucurella, Brighton, 4,900. I kind of like Cucurella just because you got Brighton against Watford in a low-scoring match. I'd probably I don't know how much it matters really. Like you can also consider Patterson if he starts 4,500. Sergi Kanosh if he's a forward, he's 4,600. Even if he's on the wing, like I think he's still viable there.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of ugly. I don't know. Rico Henry 4,000. Luke Ayling 4,100. Like you could pick any of these guys, and no one really stands out. Like there's nothing like if Rearslev starts again for Brentford, 3,800. Like you mentioned in your article, like this is a slate for if you want a center back. Like there's just no one. There's going to be, one of these random guys is probably gonna get an assist and get a floor of 10 points or get up to 15 points, but it's almost impossible to project here.
Yeah. Just on paper, it's like not the type of slate that I love because, I like to play these great defenders who have high floors and you just know they're going to get there. This is tough. We don't have much. The guys that have set pieces. So Stuart Dallas, he split them with Raphinha last game. He's been taking a couple each game, but he doesn't really offer much from open play when he plays at left back. So you're really relying on those set pieces for his floor. He's fine, but I'm not like excited about it. I think it was very notable that Kiko Femenia took sets over Tom Cleverley when they were both on the pitch last game. If you told me that Femenia was going to play 90 minutes, he'd probably be the best defender on the slate, in my opinion. But he gets subbed quite often. I still think he's viable. We see taking the majority of corners, 8 crosses last game, 7 the game before. So you could go there. And then, you mentioned Kamara, just crazy. He had 16 floor points against Burnley last weekend, and then 10 floor points midweek. Is that going to continue? You mentioned he's getting there with tackles won and interceptions and even fouls drawn. Like, I don't know.
That Burnley game was crazy.
Crazy. That Burnley game was crazy. Now, Burnley is a pretty good team to get fantasy points against, but still, that's a big number. And like, this is the only evidence we have of Kamara and how he plays, at least on this Watford team. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't go there for cash, but for tournaments, it's fine. Any of these guys can sort of be the highest scorer. It's, I like to just jam my defenders in and sort of play them on all my lineups, but this really doesn't seem like a slate for that. Sergi Canos, yeah. If he were to start at forward, I think that's a great tournament play. If he starts, on the wing too, obviously you can still play him too. I really hate that he just gets subbed early all the time. And I mean like all the time, at least recently. So I wouldn't roster him in cash games. But yeah, there's not much here.
Yeah, now they said that Kamara Burnley game, it brings up bad memories. I had Nick Pope captain in that game, and I barely cashed because I didn't have Kamara, who had 19 points. Man, just
funny. Yeah, bad memories for me too. I also had Nick Pope captain in I played the $150 King of the Pitch qualifier, and thought I'd be looking good with my Pope captain, but yeah, no Kamara. And yeah, anyways, that was tilting.
yeah.
You're right though. You can roster center backs on this slate.
If Shane Duffy starts, he's got to be the guy. Expected to be the most expensive or most defensive game, 2,500, and that's about all you can say. He was getting more shots early in the season, but he doesn't. I don't know whether it's because they're using someone else in the box a little more or not, but he's still a guy that can maybe get some shots at 2,500. So
yeah,
and you got the clean sheet too.
I would like Duffy at 2,500. Definitely averages more than a shot a game, and we've seen in seasons past he he comes up with goals quite often for a center back. It's unfortunate we don't have more guys to spend for. Part of the appeal to rostering $2,500 center backs is, you can spend up for guys. We do have some, but it's just like, it's not quite as necessary. But again, there's probably not going to be as much opportunity cost. So I'm much more okay with rostering center backs than I usually am. I guess while we're on the subject of center backs, one other guy I'll mention is 2,900 Ethan Pinnock, who has a higher floor than most center backs, playing on the right or left side of the back three that they use. It's funny now. I never thought I'd be like touting center backs and talking about who's got a higher floor. But here we are,
Speaking of, we were just talking about Kamara, I just pulled up, you're watching on YouTube, I just pulled up rotowire.com, Pinnock's page. He has a floor of 15.8 points back in November, and then he had a floor of 11.9 points against Brighton. It's he's another guy who's just racking up tackles, racking up interceptions, drawing fouls as a center back.
16-point floor is insanity. I'm looking at that right now. Yeah, so he definitely has a higher floor than the other center backs. Absolutely.
Yeah, even if you're looking at the recent matches, like I said, those are more difficult games. So how much can you compare? Because those are matches where it's like Brentford are just sitting back, accepting blows almost. But this one, it's going to be more open. There's going to be, maybe he'll get forward. We don't know, but I think that's good for defender.
Yeah, I think so too. I guess just the one. Yeah. Sorry, the last thing I'll say is you mentioned them too, but whoever starts on Brentford's wing, and it could be both of them, 4K and 3,800 is a good price for Rico Henry and Mads Roerslev. They come up with goals and assists here and there, and without there's just not much to spend for. So I don't mind rostering wing backs in a home matchup for 4K or less than 4K. Those guys look good for tournaments and even cash games as a last piece.
Yeah, so goalkeepers, I think for me personally, it's pretty straightforward. I'm going to be getting either Ben Foster or who am I looking at here? Well, actually, I don't know if I'm going to spend up at Sanchez at 5,200. I guess if I have the money here, I'm going to be looking at that matchup. I think it's going to be most offensive, but I just refreshed the odds page here, and this Brentford Crystal Palace match has an implied goal total of 0.04. fewer than that Brighton match. So, people I will be looking at the Brentford Crystal Palace match for goalkeepers. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be my strategy, but about correlation. I'm probably going to be looking at Ben Foster if I'm actually spending money at other positions. That's probably my first look though.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with most. I do like David Raya against Palace. You just mentioned that game has the lowest total now, so Raya seems fine at home. But that Watford Brighton matchup is the other game to target. Ben Foster, 4,200 and playing at home, so he's the cheapest keeper on the slate, and he has better clean sheet odds than Meslier and Pickford. I mean, Pickford's 5K, and is that still true? Foster has better clean sheet odds than Pickford. It sounds crazy, but yeah, he does. Foster has better clean sheet odds than Pickford. I mean, 4,200 versus 5K. So yeah, absolutely. And then Sanchez, if I have the money, I'd like to spend up for Sanchez. Watford has gone 3 games without scoring. And Roy Hodgson's teams specifically don't score goals. I mean, that's what usually leads to Roy Hodgson getting fired because they don't attack, or they don't attack well. Now you could say they haven't scored in 3 matches and now they're at home, so they're gonna score. Sure, I don't know if that's what you think, but yeah, I'm with you. I'm targeting that matchup, and then I like Raya as well.
Yeah. If you have money, go Sanchez. If not, go Foster, kind of thing. Like we mentioned, just Watford's inability to score, but it's not like Brighton are, killing it. 23 goals in 22 matches. Uh, I think they lead the league with 12 draws in those. They have 7 draws in 11 away matches. So it's like this is going to be. It seems like it's going to be scoreless, or it's going to be 1-1. It's going to be something like Ismail Assar comes on the 70th minute, and he's either going to get the winner in those final 20 minutes, or he's going to get the equalizer. That's kind of what it seems like.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's one of those slates where there's probably not going to be a lot of goals. And then it's those slates where you want to jam in all the guys with the highest floor, but like it's tough to identify those guys on this slate. Like there's just not defenders with high safe floors, a couple midfielders, and then you got Raphinha. So it's tough. It's a perfect slate for tournaments. There's not going to be too much chalk, and there'll be ways to get different. You can stack games. I think stacking is more in play than usual for tournaments. And then, or you can go the other route. If you think who the best plays are, they're not going to be as chalky as they usually are. So just jam in the best plays and win all the money if you think you know who they are.
There you go. That's it. I think this might be the longest 3-game podcast we've had, just because there's so much to talk about. There's so many, unknowns without the big teams in here, and it's an interesting slate. Takes a little bit longer to dissect here, but I think we did each position pretty thoroughly here. So hopefully get a winner in here. Hopefully, let's go. Hopefully Anthony Gordon. That's the play of the podcast today. Let's do that, Anthony Gordon, and hopefully you can ride us to victory there, or hopefully we can ride him to victory. I guess it is.
I'm on board with that. Go Gordon. Good luck, everybody.
Go Gordon. Good luck, everyone. Thanks for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, I've had up the rotowire.com page, rotowire.com/soccer trial, free 10-day trial, no credit card required. And that gets you all RotoWire stuff. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe to our videos. If you're listening on podcasts, please leave a review. How about that? But Ryan, it's been quite the show. At Ryan Belongia on Twitter. I'm at Zdroik. Saturdays, 3-game slate. Have a good weekend, Ryan, and we will see everyone next week. We got Champions League next week, so it's going to be another busy week.
Awesome. Excited. Big fan of this outro music too.
It's called Feeding the Ducks. So thank you to StreamYard for that one.